Hey there everyone, it's Kelly here. I'm going to share some tips and tricks with how to get your charts and work with SolarFire. This is an Aussie software program, so I am a little bit biased, but if I'm honest with you, it was actually just the first software program that I heard about and everybody that I knew used it. So when I had enough money to buy some professional level software, this is the one that I got. So I want to take you through how to get started with creating your chart in SolarFire, how to maybe change some of the settings to personalize it to the way you're working with astrology. And I'm also going to show you a few fun extras that you can do. So we'll just take about 15 minutes or so together to go through those things. So as you can see on the screen, as soon as you open up SolarFire from your desktop, this is what will happen. SolarFire will create a chart for the moment, for the transits of the day, and that's what will be displayed here on the screen. So you can sort of see just here in the center, the chart's got a blue highlighting. There's a shortcut key, so I'm going to hit Control-C, and you should see a chart actually now displayed in a larger size on the screen, which is all well and good if you just want the transits for right now, but you might want to actually enter your own birth chart or pull out a chart from your database. So I'm going to show you how to enter a chart, and we're going to use the chart of, who have I got here? I'm going to use Beyonce for this example today. So there's two ways that you can enter in the chart information. You can go to the main menu at the top of your screen and hit chart and then new, and a pop-up box appears in the middle of the screen where you can enter in the chart data. There's a shortcut key. Now am I going to remember it while we're doing this live? Yes, where you just hit F2 and the pop-up box arrives. So we're going to put in Beyonce. Important always to have your client's name. September 4, 1981 at 10 a.m. in Houston in Texas. So usually if you type the location, SolarFire, and just tab through, SolarFire will automatically pull through the time zone. But if you ever have trouble, like if I had spelt Houston wrong, which sometimes happens, what's going to happen is SolarFire will put another pop-up box of options in the country or state that you've suggested, and you can just scroll up and down to find the place that you're looking for. Most people that you work with are going to be in locations that are fairly obvious. So I've just found Houston, I'm hitting select, and that's going to work. Every now and then you'll get a client in a really obscure place, or I had somebody once who was born on this tiny island in the middle of the Pacific, and I had to do a bit of detective work to get the right longitude and latitude of their birthplace. But for the most part, just pop in the city or town and then the country or state. As you tab through, you'll see the blue box is just moving through. You can add comments into your chart. So if we want to say, I'm just going to put successful female singer. But if it's a client, you might put had a baby in 2015, got married in 2012, whatever it happened to be. And you can hit save, and those notes will stay in SolarFire attached to that chart. You can select the type of event. You can pick the gender if that's appropriate or relevant for you. It might be an event chart if you're creating a chart for someone's marriage, or you could be having a horary chart. Actually, I can't recall that I've ever bothered to change that because the technical function in the chart will be the same. The house system, though, is such a big debate in modern astrology, and there are many, many house systems to choose from here. Placidus is one of the most popular. Porphyry is another that's popular. Co is another popular house system. I work with whole sign, so that's what I'm going to select there. I'm just hitting the letter that starts the like W for whole sign or P for Placidus, or you can use the drop down arrow to change those. The zodiac, you're probably going to be working with the tropical zodiac unless you're practicing sidereal or Indian astrology, in which case you might be using the Lahiri zodiac, but we will stick with tropical because that's what we're doing. Geocentric, we're using an Earth-based model of the solar system, so you can leave that one. If you want to put a rating, if you know that's important to you about where the birth data comes from, you can do that. I don't usually worry about that for clients. So normally at this point, I would just hit OK. And then you can now see we've got the transit chart, and now we have Beyonce's chart in the file here too. I just want to show you, if you have, once you've done your work with Beyonce's chart, we're going to play around with this for a minute, you can of course save the chart so that it stays in your Solarfire database. There's two ways to do that. The shortcut key is F12, and then you can see Solarfire comes with a bunch of well-known people's charts programmed into it, which is fun for research. And then I've created charts for each year, which is where I would file my clients' charts. So if I wanted to save Beyonce's chart, if she was a current client of mine, I would save her chart to the 2019 folder. I've selected it, and I would just hit select. The other way to save a chart is from the main menu, where you can hit chart and then scroll down to the save to file, and you can see the function, the F12 key is your shortcut key. But you might have charts already in the system. So F12 was our shortcut to put a new chart in. F3 is actually how we open up our database. So I'm just going to quickly change this. So there's a number of file options here. I could pull out client charts from 2019 or 2014, 2015. I could look at political charts that are in the Solarfire, entertainment charts, and so on. There's a lot of search functions in here. So sometimes a client will schedule an appointment and they won't actually send me their birth data because they know we've done readings before, and they'll just say the data's on file. And so you can search by the client's name. I'm going to search by Queen right now because I don't have any clients called Queen, but that's going to pull up all the charts in all of the Solarfire files in my database where Queen is part of the name. So we might grab Queen Elizabeth's chart and we just select it here from the search results, and we can hit open. We can either open the chart file and see it on the screen right away, or we can add it to our calculated chart list. There's one other search function I want to show you about, and that's down here in the find option. So you can you can search by name, but one of the really fun things is you can actually search by planet placement, aspect, all kinds of things. So if you were looking for charts, and sometimes I use this if I'm like, I want to write about people that have the moon in Leo, you can select the moon, you can select the in sign tab option. So moon in Aries or moon in Cancer. Maybe you want to look at Mercury in Scorpio, and you just select what you want, hit add, and you see it in the search condition, and then you hit search, and all the charts in your database, let's search in entertainment only for Mercury and Scorpio, and if we hit search, Solarfire is going to pick up all the people in the entertainment folder who have Mercury and Scorpio. So this may be a little more comprehensive than you're expecting, but I always say that Solarfire is like a brain, and I think we know how to use a very small percentage of it. I'm just changing the house system on Queen Elizabeth's chart. A lot of the house systems of the charts that are built into the Solarfire database will be in Placidus. That's sort of the default, and you can just change that to whatever works for you. So now you can see we have current transits, we have Beyonce, and we have Queen Elizabeth. So to get a chart larger on the screen, we can hit Control-C, and I like to make it really big so it takes up the whole screen. Another way to display the chart is to go to the chart menu and then hit, view current chart. So sorry, view from the main menu and then current chart, and whatever you've got highlighted in that Solarfire box. I'll just show you again. Oh, I don't want to shut the software down. We've got Beyonce highlighted, so we're going view current chart. I would just do Control-C, but I just want to make sure you know all the options. So here you can see Beyonce's chart on the screen. There's some aspect lines in the center, and I'm going to take you through how to manipulate those as we get going. So I think that's the basics to begin with. Solarfire has a number of visual or decorative options, I guess, and so you can certainly change. Once you're in this screen, you can go to the wheel style, and I just want to make sure I write down what I've got here, so I know how to come back to it. We can look at things like a white chart display, which is going to be very boring. I think there is a rainbow option. Maybe not. There's the sign ruler option if I want to make my charts look closer to Tony's charts. So via the wheel style, you can have a look at all the kinds, whatever visual most appeals to you. So, oh no, that's not quite what I had. Now I just need to go back. Hang on one second, because that's going to, this is the one I want. Here we go. So that's the style that I'm used to. It's amazing how quickly you get familiar with a particular visual, so you'll want to keep that. Now, once we have our chart on the screen, you might want to adjust the settings or preferences about what you're actually seeing in the chart itself. And so there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can go via the chart options from the main menu tab and then hit display points. This allows you to edit how many things you're looking at in the chart. I have got things like the ascendant and the midheaven placed in the chart because that's important with the whole sign house system. But perhaps you want to work with Chiron or the 4 main asteroids. So there's a list of options that you can choose from in terms of selected or unselected points. And it's just a matter of clicking on an unselected point and it moves it into the selected point. So I've just added the asteroids and Chiron in. So if I hit save and then select and now bring up Beyonce's chart using the Control-C, you'll see that there's a few extra symbols in there. So that's how you can manipulate what type of symbols you see. So I'm just gonna repeat this process and then just remove those extras because I personally don't work with them, but SolarFire is not designed for you personally. It's got all the options so that you can customize it to the extent you want. Probably the most important, in addition to the displayed points, will be the aspect set. If I just go back to the displayed points for 1 second, one of the really common personal preferences is, do you want the north and the south node displayed in your chart, or do you just want the north node and you know that the south node is opposite it, for instance? So there's a lot of options here. So back to our chart options menu, we're going to the aspect set, and we can do aspects for planets, fixed stars, Arabic parts, asteroids, and other things. You'll mostly work with the planets, and that's where I'll take you in today. There are a lot of default systems of aspect sets in here, so you may find one that exists that you really like. I'm using one called standard because it's my program and I've got it set to my standard, but of course this is how we manipulate it. We hit edit and we can go in and pick. You can see I've got conjunction, opposition, trine, square, and sextile, and they each have a plus next to them, which means they've been enabled. So if I wanted to add in the quincunx, I bring my cursor onto it, highlight it in blue, and then I hit the enable function above, and you'll see the plus come up. If you want to disable, you can just, again, highlight the one you want to disable and hit disable. So if we want to check the settings, like what are the orbs that are being used for a conjunction aspect? Highlight conjunction, and then we're going to move into the applying, the separating. Those first 2 columns relate just to the luminaries. So that's for conjunctions, applying or separating for the sun and moon, and applying or separating just in the natal chart is that first row. In the next row, this is applying or separating conjunctions to the sun or moon in the progress chart. And here we have applying or separating conjunctions to the sun or moon for transits. Then we can look at conjunctions involving not the sun and moon, and we can set our orbs here. I would encourage you to, if you do buy SolarFire, which of course I'm going to recommend, do go and check these settings because the defaults might be like 10 degrees or 15 degrees. And one thing I recommend to newer students is to keep tighter orbs. That means that you're focusing on the most important aspects in a chart, and it will allow you to really kind of develop that without going, too crazy and having to worry about orbs that have very large aspects. So this is how, and we can pick trine, we can change the orbs for sun or moon. I like to use the same orbs for sun, moon, and other planets, partly because I just like the software to tell me, you know, the basic aspects, and then I'll use my own judgment and experience to add in other aspects that I think are important. But that's how we would change our aspect settings here. So I'm going to select that. You can also turn aspects off, which is something that I often do. When I'm printing a chart that I'm going to work on, I do like to DIY it. So I'll actually select no aspects and have the chart that looks like this. It doesn't mean there are no aspects in the chart. It just means that I would like to enter them in myself rather than have the software tell me what's going on. Okay, so just hang on one second. All right, team, so we've done the aspects. So the next thing you might be interested to do, I'm going to pop the aspects back in so that you can see them. That's probably familiar. So I have none and standard are the two options I move between the most. But you might want to see some transits and see what's happening in your chart right now. So there's a few ways that you can do this. It depends whether you want to see the transits in real time in a chart wheel format and kind of figure it out yourself, or whether you want the software program to give you a report that you then like grab info out of. So the first option is to go under the dynamic tab. So dynamic is basically anything to do with timing. It's where you'll find all the info about transits and progressions and other timing techniques too. So we're going to go to animate by wheel. This is going to bring a bi wheel onto the screen. It's a two chart in one sort of format. The inside wheel is the natal chart. The outside wheel are the current transits for when I'm filming this now. Well, actually, it's current transits for the birth location with the corresponding time. So we've got Beyonce's chart, her birth chart's in the center, and the transits for 12th of September in the outside wheel. So we can manipulate this. We can move forward by a second, by an hour, a day, a week, a month, or a year. You can tell the program what you want it to do. Let's look at weeks, for instance, and we can move it forward manually, 1 week at a time. You'll notice that as I click the button, the planets in the chart move and the date in the top right corner changes as well. We're now looking at October 10th, then October 17, October 24, October 31, and so on. We can also do an auto animation, and this is going to go a bit crazy when I hit this button. You can see the chart is just on kind of auto animate, and you can make that go slower or faster depending on what's right for you. I usually find that a bit crazy and a bit mentally taxing, so I usually do it manually, but the option is there as well. You can also always, of course, save or export your charts as PDFs. So if you're in the bi wheel with the transit and the natal chart, you just go to actions and hang on, go to charts. Okay, now I'm trying to do something with you. Page that I usually do in a slightly different format. So hang on 1 second. Okay, so we're going to just come out of this chart because this is how I normally. Actually, the chart display that I love when you're learning astrology is what's called the beginner page. So under the view option, there's this wonderful thing called page topic index. And if you click on it, it brings up a bunch of automatic layouts or formats for the chart itself. If you go to basic and then you select the begin option, and then hit OK, look at what it brings up onto the chart for Beyonce here. It brings up some extra tables. The aspect grid down the bottom, an elemental and a mode table, a table of aspects, a table that explains the different symbols, the zodiac signs and the planets, as well as the symbols for the aspects. It may be more information than you know how to use yet, but in a client setting, this is really fun to give your client the chart, obviously, but also to get that extra info. And you might find it fascinating to see, you know, what your elements or modes are. Now, these tables are kind of generated from preset settings inside Solarfire, so I wouldn't necessarily take them as written in stone, but they're definitely going to give you a great guide as an easy reference. So there are some other options here. Now, I often do save charts from this format. We go into the print function, and you can print the chart. Why am I having such trouble with this? I did this so, it's, you know, when you try to explain something that you normally do, oh, copy send, here we go. You can copy the chart to the clipboard as an email attachment. I use the file, and then if I'm putting it in a PowerPoint, I'm going to use a JPEG or a GIF. But if I'm sending it to a client, I'm going to create a PDF. So we'll do that now, because this creates quite a nice format. So we'll call that Beyonce. And you're going to see that pop up on my screen here, hopefully. I'm not sure if that'll show through. It's just basically a PDF version of the chart we were just looking at, which of course means you can easily send that chart around to whoever you need to. So we were just playing around with the formats, and that was under the view and the page topic index. Now, there's a bunch of things in here you can do. If you want a classical style chart, you can look at the different options in there. There's a technique that I like to use called Fedaria, which is a whole different, it's a timing technique, and the chart is in a square rather than a circle, but that's under classical and then predict. And if I grab that, you'll see there's a square chart. It's still Beyonce's chart, just displayed differently. And there's a table with some timing dates in the bottom underneath the chart. So you can really have a lot, like you could spend hours going through all the page topic index options. If you want to see two different charts on the screen at once, you can use the multiple charts. And I'm just going to go down here till I find a dual. Hit OK, and then we'll put Beyonce and Queen Elizabeth on the screen together. So now we've got like two charts on the screen at once, and this can be helpful for relationship astrology if you want to compare your chart to someone else's chart, just to give you an example of how much Solarfire can do. So we've looked at the buy wheel option, but you may want to run a report. So that's how we do that is under dynamic and then transits and progressions. And the shortcut key is Shift F3. I don't know if that's going to work, so we'll just do it the long way. So in here, you can totally customize the amount of data that you get. I actually use this option when I'm preparing for my monthly subscribers each month, when I want to talk about all the aspects for the next month ahead. So you can pick a start date. Let's say Beyonce wants to know her transits for the year starting September 2019. So we're going to do one period of a year. We can do transits to radix. Radix is a fancy word for your natal chart or your birth chart. You could do transits to transits. That's what I do when I'm looking at monthly, when I just want to know what's happening in the sky that month. So we'll stick with transits to radix because that's probably what you'll do. Again, you can edit what transiting planets do we want to look at. Planet and chart. I use the outers a lot, even though I know there's different things than the outers in there. So let me just, I'm going to go with none and just edit a few in. So let's look at transits. Normally with transits, you might just look at Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So we're going to select that. Then what kind of aspect do you want? Do you want to just know conjunctions from those planets? Do you want to know squares and oppositions? So similar, we're editing the aspect set in the transit report. You'll recognize this screen because it's very similar to where we were changing the aspects in the birth chart. So I'm asking Solarfire to tell me about any conjunctions, oppositions, or squares that Beyonce will have from Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto in the next 12 months. Once you've made all your settings that you're happy with, we just hit view and the report pops up. Now, it doesn't usually look quite like that. I have a feeling that reporting, I have Solarfire on two different devices. This is my desktop, and I also have it on my laptop. And sometimes this reporting software does play up a little bit. So it looks a little bit better than this, and unfortunately, probably should have maybe done this differently. What you will normally see is Jupiter conjunct the moon, and you'll have a date and you'll have a zodiac sign reference. So I apologize for that. That is a weird glitch. It's something on my computer, not in Solarfire, that I just haven't got around to fixing because I have Solarfire on a different device and I just can't get the reports there. But at least you'll know where to create it when you want to get a report for yourself. So that's your transit report. Got a list of things to cover for you all here. We've looked at the bi-wheel. There are different ways to get the information you need. I've talked about some shortcut keys. There's the main menu option. There's also different icons here as well that you can use to create different displays and formats and things like that. I am showing you Solify version 9, which is one of the more recent versions. I don't think there's a version 10 yet, but there'll be various updates in version 9, and this may or may not be the most recent one. So we've looked at how to create a transit chart. We've looked at how to animate through. I think the only extras would be to show you something like the Astro Cartography option, and you can get there just by looking at this mapping model here, and that creates a map of your birth chart over the globe, and it highlights where your planetary lines connect to geographical places. You can manipulate the map. No surprise here, I've got a default to Australia, but if we did a world option, let's do the world. We can center the world on Europe, America, Australia. So here's a map of the world with Queen Elizabeth's chart and her energetic lines running through here. So that's a whole kind of extra fun technique, but you know, play around with these types of things. So I think this has got everything you need to get started. Open up Solifier, F2 or chart new from the very beginning, just to get started. Put your birth details in, hit OK, and start playing around with all the wonderful software here. So enjoy playing around with Solifier, enjoy the rest of your training, and I will see you in class soon. Bye for now.